we're going to get started. I know there's going to be a couple people who trickle in, so we'll just go with it. So good morning. Very, very thankful that everybody's here. We're very excited. We have a lot to share. Today is going to be fun. We're all going to learn from each other. And I just want to introduce myself. My name is Erin. Hale.
I'm Erin N. And I'm Marina.
Okay, so hopefully everybody, it seems like a really great group, and we're going to get a lot out of this, so let's just go ahead and jump in. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Nope. Feel free to get up anytime to get more drink or anything.
Yeah, let's just keep it casual. It's more comfortable, it's more fun. It's casual.
You can stretch. Okay, to start out, I'm going to need 10 volunteers.
Which means pretty much.
Okay, yeah, so if you guys could all just kind of circle up right here. Does anyone feel comfortable reading more than one time?
Sure.
You want me to get her? Or maybe she should still read that. Okay. So basically what you're doing is you're going to be getting a card. Don't tell, just read over your card and see what your role, one side is your role and one side is a statement you're going to be reading. Oh, great.
No.
Okay. What did you get, huh? I need 3 more people. Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically what I should have done this quickly. Okay, if you could just take a piece of this string and make sure that the end of the string that you have is connected to Kelly.
Oh. 3 more people. Do we still need one more? I think.
Like, we're all good now.
Okay.
Records.
All we're going to do after this. It's just because I want to show you.
Yes. Okay, so basically, Kelly's going to read her statement, her role, and then her statement. And then Todd's going to respond to her by reading your role and your statement, etc., etc., etc. Okay?
Okay. My partner rapes me. Can you help me?
Look, it's not that I don't believe you, but I can't press charges because you didn't scream.
What next? Okay. Are you sure you're not just making this up because you're mad and you're trying to get back at him?
And who are you supposed to?
Oh, I'm the detective.
Okay, wait, hold on. Kelly, go ahead. You read the statement again.
Oh, my partner raped me. Can you help me?
The mother? I can't believe you let things get this bad. I raised you to be smarter than this.
Can you help me?
Read the whole statement.
My partner raped me. Can you help me?
I'm a lawyer. I've seen these cases before. You're going for custody of the kids, so you cry rape to make your case stronger. I don't buy it, and neither will the judge.
My partner rapes me. Can you help me?
I'm the clergy. Men have different needs than women. Perhaps if you were more loving and supportive, your partner could express his emotions in a healthier way.
My partner rapes me. Can you help me?
I'm your sister. What are you talking about? He can't rape you. You're his wife.
My partner rapes me. Can you help me?
I'm a counselor, and all I can say is you need to learn some assertive communication skills so you can set some clear sexual boundaries with your partner.
My partner rapes me. Can you help me?
I'm a friend, and are you sure this wasn't a case of your lips saying no, but your eyes saying yes?
My partner raped me. Can you help me?
I'm a therapist. You need to look at your codependency issues and why you've chosen this type of a partner. Let's talk more about your childhood.
My partner raped me. Can you help me?
I'm a police officer. Ma'am, you need to calm down and quit getting hysterical, or I'm going to have to arrest you too.
My partner raped me. Can you help me?
I'm guessing I'm the partner, or a batterer. See, I told you no one would believe you. Now you can never leave me.
Okay, so as you can all imagine, this is a fairly typical scene. So basically, Kelly is the survivor of sexual assault within a marriage, and Spencer is, in this exercise, her batterer. And so you can kind of see where this comes from. It connects a lot. You can just pass your cards around. Basically, it's it exemplifies how much of an effect a community has on a survivor of sexual assault. When she becomes more and more isolated, the crime of rape becomes prolonged because she's constantly facing the trauma every time she reaches out for help and is not receiving anything. So you can all sit back down.
The next thing we're going to do, in general, as you can see from the exercise, language takes a big part in it. So everything you say is always important, and there's always, meanings and connotations behind everything. And our language reflects our culture and what our culture values or doesn't value. So we're going to do a quick language exercise. And the first thing I'm going to write here is John beat Mary. As you can see, John here in the beginning is the most important thing. He's the one that was doing the action and is an active sentence. So John is the one beating Mary. Okay? Now we're just going to change it a little bit. And we're going to change it and make it about Mary. Actually, we're going to make it about John. Wait. Yeah, about Mary. Mary was beaten by John. Okay. You see how we changed that? So first it was basically because John's at the beginning of the sentence. It's about John, and John is the one doing the action. Suddenly we change it to passive voice, and Mary was beaten by John. That this ending, by John, kind of doesn't really become as important. It's kind of hanging off the end, and it's not important for the sentence. In fact, we can just take John completely out of the picture and just say Mary was beaten. And suddenly, we don't even know who did the beating. The man, or the batterer, not always man, but John became invisible. And so we have all these women, so when we say things like, 10 women were raped last night, or this many women were beaten, well, who beat them? We don't know because they're not even mentioned. It's about the women. And it's like saying violence against women is a women's issue when really it's men that are doing it, right? Or the batterers. So because John was the one doing it and we took him out, we don't know who he is. He becomes invisible, and it's also a part of victim blaming to only be naming the victim, or what we say, survivor. And then there's another word for this. Does anyone know what it's called when somebody was beaten? We have a word for this for women.
Battered.
Right. So Mary is a battered woman, and that becomes her identity. Do you see how that changes? So when we go to passive voice, and we talk about women being hurt and violated by men, but we don't say the men's names, then we take them out of the equation. That's what today's about, is about reframing this whole concept of violence against women, and we're changing it to men's violence against women, and that's how we're going to be referring to it from now on through the rest of the day. Okay, that's good. And then we also have an exercise for everybody. The very last page of your pamphlets, there's like an article, it looks like. It says violence against women. What we're going to do is, this is an exercise where you're going to read, we're going to give you about, 5 to 10 minutes, however long it takes, to read over this article. And if you can just circle and underline and maybe put question marks and whatever in the margins about what you think maybe is missing from this article. Or what maybe you think doesn't look quite right. And then we're going to come back to you and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to let you guys talk about it. Okay, so basically the first thing is, what did you notice about the writing? Does anyone want to raise a hand and say something about it? What did you notice?
Passive, detached, and out of date. Sadly out of date. Sophisticated. Also, it's interesting, without your exercise, the grammatical exercise, I wouldn't have noticed certain things in itself. The fact that it's very much, it leaves out constantly references to men. As the purveyors, men purveyors of violence against women, which, and it's definitely, it's very much of a generic overview, and leaves out a startling amount of the depth of the problem. So I would suspect this was written about 20 years ago, and it wasn't quite.
It's kind of compiled from actual articles, so it's not one real comprehensive article from a newspaper, but it is pieces of real articles, and that is how people talk.
And I'm surprised it doesn't even know it, first of all. First of all, I filled in by men every time I said violence against women. And second of all, I mean, the statistics, now it's down every 6 seconds a woman is beaten in this country, and every 12 seconds a woman is raped. So the statistics, on average, 3 women a day are murdered as a result of domestic violence. Everything has gone logarithmically up.
Right, okay, thank you. And we're gonna hear from someone else. Why do you think that someone writing about gender violence would use the language in this way? Go ahead.
I was just going to say it doesn't point any fingers directly, and so it's hard for them. It's hard for somebody to say, no, you're wrong, or anything like that.
Okay. What did everyone notice about the language used to describe these people? E.g. rapists or girls. What kind of language was used?
They used rapists, and then after they go, most have normal appearances. You can tell if a person is a rapist, and then family members, other adults, murderers, what else? They also talk about peers, teachers, and employers, and don't really point a finger at gender or anything like that, just kind of very vague.
It kind of becomes gender neutral when we talk about anyone who's raping could be a lawyer. We don't know who that could be. Do we know if that lawyer is a man or a woman? So you can kind of see how it not just erases men, but really just neutralizes the fact that it's a gender violence. It's not just violence, it's gender-based violence. It's violence against women by men. And what kind of words were used to describe the women?
The one that I saw the most was girls.
Right.
Girls. Interesting. Women, once or twice maybe, but girls.
So we see that the men become lawyers, doctors, and neighbors, and the women stay women, or actually get even younger and turn into girls. Right? So it's funny how that happens, where we see, Mary's always talked about. Mary exists. She's a woman. She's a girl. But whatever happened to her, we don't know who did it or what happened or why. When really the fact is it's men. 99% of the time it's men that are perpetrating violence against women. And when we talk about rape, it's also 99% of men who are perpetrating rape against men and women. So even though people like to say, well, men are raped too. Yes, they are. But they're most often raped by other men. So it's really a men's violence issue. It's a men's issue where the men are the one perpetrating this violence. Does anyone have any comments or want to add anything?
When they speak about women, they're actually dehumanized. They're no longer looked at as a person. They're more looked at as a statistic. So once you take that away from like a person, you care less about them. You disassociate yourself from them. You look at them more as a number and no longer as a human being.
Right. So you kind of become desensitized to the fact, oh, this many women are raped all the time. Oh, but no one says this woman was tied up and drugged and raped. Because then we go, oh, that sounds really horrible. But you can just throw around people are beaten and raped. Go ahead.
Just another point in the second from the last paragraph. Interesting bit of language. It also shows hints that this thing was written most likely by a man. Where there has also been although activists in the battered women's movement still maintain that sentences are typically lenient and abusers are rarely held accountable either by the law or by their school or employer. Well, that may be true that we maintain that. The fact is that's become virtually indisputable by now. And another thing, by activists in the battered women's movement still maintain, it almost sounds like the implication is that, first of all, that the movement is mostly made up of women, and second of all, like, we're all a bunch of we're just a bunch of complainers.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
kind of
it's
doesn't
like-
sound very positive when we should be saying activists in the battered women's movement. That should be a very positive thing. We're trying to end violence against women, right? But the way they're speaking about it, it sounds, like you said, it sounds negative.
Yeah, it sounds like it's minimizing the problem, and it sounds like the same problem here as the exercise you did on the board, the grammar exercise. It depersonalizes the issue, to the point where it's so generic that once again it becomes that it really gets away from the issues of why violence against women occur.
Right, and I think that's a really good point, is it doesn't talk at all about the underlying causes for this violence. It just mentions this many women were raped and that's it, right? I think that's exactly right.
No, I'm just waiting for it.
Okay, and then, does anyone have any more comments? Otherwise we're gonna move on. Go ahead.
I thought it was really interesting how kind of fatalistic they made it sound about like finding a solution for the problem. So there's no easy solution, but I think there's an easy solution, but a difficult process.
Yeah.
And so there's no
I agree. Good job. Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on and we're gonna do another board exercise.
Okay, how many of us have heard boys will be boys? Everybody. I'm just gonna guess. So when do we usually say boys will be boys? What's going on?
When they do something wrong.
When they do something wrong.
Excuse them from behaviors that are unacceptable.
Excuse them from behavior, exactly. So we're gonna make a box. This is gonna be our boy box. What does it mean to be a boy in this culture? What characteristics?
Just yell it out.
Yell it out.
Masculinity.
What does that mean?
Aggression.
Aggression.
Brown punches.
Better.
It's hard to write with chalk. It like slows you down. What was the other one? Aggressive, competitive, rambunctious. I like that.
Dominating.
How do you spell rambunctious?
Just put it that. Insensitive?
Carnivorous?
Proud.
Physical.
Yes, active, physical.
Sexual.
Driven. What was the other one?
Driven.
Controlling.
Controlling. So dominant.
Strong.
Strong.
Provider.
Provider. Yes.
Angry.
Yes. We're going to talk about it. Okay. What is not a boy? What's the worst thing it could be called? If you're a man,
Sissy.
sissy.
Pansy.
Weak. Girly man.
Girly man.
Emotional.
Emotional.
Feminine.
Effeminate. Nice. How do you spell effeminate?
Yeah.
I'm very reliant on my spell check.
Lazy. We got a vegetarian back here.
What else?
Vegetarian.
Vegetarian. Veggie. You have to eat meat. Where's our carnivorous?
Unmotivated.
Unmotivated. How about pussy? Right? That's the worst thing you could be called. You pussy.
No, there's a worse.
Who knows worse? Who knows worse? What's worse than pussy?
Gentle.
Talking stereotypes.
There
Someone had to say it.
you go.
Slow.
No. Okay, are we pretty good with this list? I guess I'm gonna have to erase it to the other list. It's enormous. Okay, are we good? Okay. Okay, I guess I should ask some questions about this. Are we happy with this? Does this seem normal or healthy? And it's really important too to think about the fact that this is not only does this cater to violence, but it's also really unfortunate for men. Like, why should they only be limited to these emotions and feelings? Why is this acceptable? And some of these things, like gentle and emotional, these are important parts of being a human. So we just need to think about this. Boys will be boys, so next time you hear it, shake your head or something, I don't know. So we're not going to say boys will be boys, because that's an excuse for bad behavior. What does this mean? Act like a lady.
Proper.
Proper.
Clean.
Quiet.
Quiet.
Prudish.
Light.
Docile.
Assertive.
Clean.
Passive.
Clean. Docile, did I hear?
Yes.
Ooh, pure.
Pure.
Oh.
Virginal.
Virginal. Love it.
Mean yes when you say no.
Yeah, how do I put that? Yes. Dumb. No.
Sorry. Indecisive.
Indecisive? Let's pretend like that.
Passive.
Very good.
Caring.
Caring? Caring. Caring.
Respectful.
Okay, when we do not act like a lady, well, when a woman does not act like a lady, what is she called?
Hussy.
Hussy.
I like that word.
Bitch.
Bossy.
Bossy.
Tomboy.
Boyish.
Moody.
Dirty.
Manly. Dominating.
Cold.
Whoa.
Frigid. Hysterical.
Yeah, neurotic.
Neuro. Hysterical. What else?
Hysterical.
Yes, we just wrote hysterical. The rest, imagine the rest being there. Anything else?
Got it.
Messy.
Nice. When a woman is assertive, I'm going to try to fish one out.
Dominating.
Ball buster.
Argue.
Ball buster. Somebody said it. I'm not making this up. Okay, are we pretty good? Are we pretty good with the list?
There's one I'm called all the time.
What?
Controlling.
Controlling.
Feminist.
Thank
you.
What is it?
Feminist.
Thank you. The other F word, right? Feminist.
I didn't know that.
Feminist.
It's proposing.
Okay, so first of all, any comments? I don't even know if I have to lead you. I think you're getting it right. I'm ignoring this side of the room. Oh my God, there's a fan of light over here. Okay. Any comments? Any? Obviously, we're pretty much defined in opposition to one another, men and women. And some of the things that men are praised for, like dominant, or, you know, whatever, unemotional, are the exact opposite for women. So it's really dangerous in society when men are supposed to be dominant and aggressive and all those other things. What else?
Violent.
Violent. And women are supposed to be passive, quiet,
Subservient.
subservient. Okay, so we're setting ourselves up here for violence. We're setting ourselves up here for women being quiet, or women not speaking out when they're violated, because we're given kudos in our society when we are doing these things. So when you break out of this and you become any of these things, even if it's assertive, then you're gonna get penalized in society. You're gonna get called a bitch or a feminist, which is apparently a bad word in our society. So it's just really important that we think about the gender binaries and how we teach our young people, how we talk to one another. And thank you for your participation. I'm exhausted.
Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is privilege and oppression. Everyone has in their books page 4. If you want to flip to page 4. There's a little chart. I have it written up here too. If everyone just kind of wants to mentally count how many they are in each group, how many oppressor groups you might be in, how many target groups you might be in. Just think about that for a little bit.
And it just should be mentioned that it's really natural when you're like, oh, look at all these oppressor groups I'm in. It's really important to remember that everybody is part of a target group, and almost everybody is part of a target group and an oppressor group. And it's not something to feel bad about. It's something to be aware of so that we can make change. So we're not trying to point any fingers or make anybody feel bad. It's kind of natural to be like, oh, I feel bad. I'm all these things on the oppressor group. But instead of feeling bad, let's be productive and be aware of it.
Well, then we're going to pass around name tags, and I hope everyone still has their markers or pens.
Does anyone need a pen?
And what you're going to write is your name and one of the oppressor groups that you're in. And what we're going to call that is privilege. Okay. So we're going to be okay. Well, yeah. So if you, let's say I'm Marina and I have white privilege, I would write that on my paper. So whatever privilege you have, go ahead and write your name and your privilege. Okay, let's go around. How about Erin, you want to start and read the first one?
All right. What do you think caused your heterosexuality?
We're not answering the questions, we're just
saying.
When and how did you first decide you were heterosexual?
Is it possible? Sexuality is a phase when you go out.
Is it possible your heterosexuality stems from a neurotic fear of others of the same sex?
If you've never slept with a person of the same sex, is it possible that all you need is a good gay lover?
To who have you disclosed your heterosexual tendencies? How did they react?
Why do you heterosexuals feel compelled to seduce others into your lifestyle?
Why do you insist on flaunting your heterosexuality? Can't you just be what you are and keep it quiet?
Would you want your children to be heterosexual knowing the problem they'd face?
A disproportionate majority of child molesters are heterosexuals. Do you consider it safe to expose your children to heterosexual teachers?
With all the societal support marriage receives, the divorce rate is spiraling. Why are there so few stable relationships among heterosexuals?
Why do heterosexuals place so much emphasis on sex?
Considering the menace of overpopulation, how could the human race survive if everyone were heterosexual like you?
Could you trust a heterosexual therapist to be objective? Don't you fear she or he might be inclined to influence you in the direction of his or her own leanings?
How can you become a whole person if you limit yourself to compulsive, exclusive heterosexuality and fail to develop your natural, healthy homosexual potential?
I'm just going to read a couple extra ones. It says, do heterosexuals...
Really smart too. And like, I don't know, I had a lot at school and they're like my favorite.
For me, it's like I've learned from like the past year, I've been like educating myself with like feminism and stuff like that, and I think it's really good to just keep an open mind and to kind of like, you know, when I thought feminist, I thought like all the worst things, all the stuff on the board. So for me, like I know I feel good to myself like when I'm reading the books and I'm like telling other people, like my friend here that I work with. I told her about this event and I was like really excited for her to come with me. So I just for myself would continue to not discriminate against people and to just educate myself about all these things that I had no idea about, and just continue to like help other people around me, just let them know about all these things that are going on that are important.
Okay, I'm Chantal, and I'm a straight person. So, I guess like I've been working for a couple years now just to educate people about sexuality. I host a radio show at school. So, but one of the things that we've had like, you know, different people, but I guess like it's funny because I have a lot of gay friends, but I never really give that voice out as much. And I think that that's what I'm going to try to do like more often, is maybe like listen to the fact that there are these type of people and they are getting oppressed, but just because I'm not oppressing them, that like I should stand for like my friends who possibly are oppressing them and they don't even know it. Like, because a lot of people who don't have gay friends just will say like homosexual phrases that like are very hurtful, and then just the fact that you even listen to it and just ignore the fact that it even is offensive and continue it, like it just adds to these like these things that like happen. So I'm going to try to be more open and like make sure that I am aware of it.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to own your privilege. You said you're a straight person, we're saying you have heterosexual privilege.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's hard to own your privilege, but just... Can you just say, I have...
Oh, I have heterosexual privilege.
Just being fair, everyone else has to own theirs. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Leah, and I have able-bodied privilege, and I plan to, and the people that I meet that have disabilities and stuff, to just really get on the level with them and try and help them in any way that I can to like grow or learn more, or just feel comfortable as who they are, to I don't know, not feel like people judge them, just try and make them feel like a good normal person, just like everyone else, and maybe help them, like I kind of want to be a yoga teacher, so maybe I could help people find more flexibility.
Male privilege, and I do commit to standing up with women to show that violence against women and rape against women is not a woman's issue, but is a human issue.
I'm Kelly, and I have heterosexual privilege, and one thing I do now is when my friends say homophobic things, and that I always kind of question them almost ignorantly. Like if they say a movie is, oh, that movie's so gay, like, oh really? Like, why? Just kind of make them think about their logic. And yeah, I commit to continue doing that and doing that in more situations.
I'm Claire, and I'm white, I'm straight, I'm middle class. And I believe all groups should be respected and cared for, period.
I'm Steven, I'm American born, and American born privilege. And just to say that I really don't care where you're from, and just to give you the same equal rights as us who are born in this geographic location. That's all.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad that everyone shared. I know it's kind of hard, especially if you haven't heard a lot of this terminology, to realize how much privilege that you do have. But making that commitment and just helping other people and treating them with the same way the same respect you would expect to be treated with is really good. So on that note, we have some boards up you can look at that kind of, especially right here, that we can look at, and we're gonna just take a quick break.
You guys can just walk around the men's journal called Voicemail. The Macho Paradox is what we're leaning heavily on for this presentation by Jackson Katz. So just feel free to stretch your legs. You don't have to, but we have
like 5 minutes
we have
or
some
so.
more time. So.
Stretch.
We're going to read three different people have cards, and they're going to read what it says on the card, and then we're going to talk about what that means. So these three people are all radio broadcasters. You'll probably recognize the names, so let's have Howard Stern go first.
Hey.
Oh, wait. Also, this comment was made in response to Columbine. So as everybody's mourning the deaths of the students in Columbine, this is what Howard Stern had to say.
Wow. There were some really good-looking girls running out with their hands over their heads. Did those kids try to have sex with any of those good-looking girls? They didn't even do that. At least if you're going to kill yourself, kill all the kids. Why wouldn't you have some sex? If I was going to kill people, I'd take them out with sex.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Okay, Oh, okay, so now we're going to hear from Tom Likas, and we're just going to hear a couple of the phrases that Tom Likas says, and this is how Mr. Likas refers to women. Mr. Likas?
I'm Tom Likas. According to Tom Likas, like me, all women are scheming bitches, sperm depositories, and human urinals.
So there we go. We'll have a time to respond, so I'm sure everybody's... Okay, and then lastly, and this is just a one-word phrase that's often heard by lovely Rush Limbaugh, and I'm sure that he would be sad to know that he's on a list with the likes of Howard Stern and Tom Likas. But we're going to talk about why this magical word is so damaging.
Feminazi.
Feminazi. Okay, so anybody have any immediate responses? Yeah.
Well, these are easy targets to pick on. I think much more insidious and unfortunately effective for the people that are trying to push that agenda is the everyday stuff of just the assumption of standard roles, some of which you've been parodying up on your heterosexual questionnaire there and whatnot. And it doesn't take too long to look at just about anything in the mainstream media and see what's going on. Perhaps a little illustration of that was there's a lot going in the liberal media lately about the contrast between Western society and the role of women and, say, Middle Eastern Muslim societies. And there was an interesting comment from a woman in, I think she was Egypt or something, and she said, well, people from the West criticize the role of women here, but I don't have to take my clothes off to sell a wrench.
We are actually going to talk about that.
Good.
And although these are easy topics, they're massively popular in the United States. So we're talking about them because Tom Likas, if he's not still #1, he's somewhere close to #1 listened to by men in this country. So we've got to talk about what people are listening to, the messages they're getting. You know what I mean?
Well, the other aspect would be is that if everybody believed this stuff so willingly, why do they have to keep telling everybody this? In other words, say men in this case.
Right. So the media is.
Yeah, they're reinforcing this. They're telling guys, this is the way you're supposed to think.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't think this way, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Right. It's teaching them to be done on it. And it's almost reinforcing them. It makes them feel good knowing that somebody respected and broadcasted, and over a certain area is proud to say those things,
It's important to note that Tom Likas and Howard Stern claim to speak for all men.
They speak for all men, according to them. Yeah. And just like something very basic on that board over there, it says the mass media both reflect and powerfully reinforce gender roles. So they're reinforcing some of the ideologies that are already there, and we know that because if a comedian's up on stage and he's making very sexist remarks, all the men in the crowd are going crazy, like, yeah, my girlfriend's that or this. And so they're reinforcing what's there, they're reflecting what's there, but it's all part of it. So I don't know, I think those are just important basic ideas to keep in mind. Did you have a comment?
Obviously there's people listening to this stuff. Where is the self-control and the ability to turn it off? They're not making money unless somebody's listening. So why are we not targeting the people they're listening to, do a study on where their target market is and focus on that? Because as long as people are allowed to say what they're allowed to say, they're gonna say it. And as long as there's people that with the mentality to say this is wrong, they're gonna have a crowd and an audience to appease and make their money off of. So maybe that's a target area that needs to be looked at. Where is their audience?
That's interesting you said that because we're talking about talk radio. These people, the most popular ones, Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh, are on in the morning for the morning commute, and Tom Likas is on for the afternoon commute. So men aren't necessarily listening in an audience.
But there are other radio stations that people could choose to listen to.
Sure, but they're in an isolated, safe area, your own car. So you're,
how do you target that area? That's where it's problematic, because they're out there because otherwise they wouldn't make money. There's no money. It all comes down to who's fueling the money source.
Oh, sure, but my point is that if you want to target the audience and kind of, I wasn't understanding if you wanted to shame them.
No, not so much that. As what I'm saying is,
make sure everybody's able to finish their sentence.
What I'm saying is that if in fact we're trying to bring people to a higher consciousness of not attacking or humiliating or dominating or suppressing people with our words, actions, and so on, maybe there should be a statistical study that if there is a way to do that, to find out who are these people doing it. You know, because somebody's obviously making money off it. There's also advertisers, there's people that pay for airtime. That maybe made the better target. Because without the fuel, the car can't go. Without the money behind these radio stations, they're not going to be in business. It's just like anything else, you know.
Just quickly, I just want to say that we're talking about like a lot of different varying aspects that contribute to rape culture. So right now we're focusing on the media. So we're going to talk about specific people in power who have the power to make change and instead are using their power to continue to oppress. So we are going to talk about the people who listen. We are, you know, we're just going to talk, we're talking about all aspects. So right now we're going to go ahead and focus on the media. So we are going to pick on people.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, like, to your point, I mean, like, I think it would be a good idea if we could find out who is, like, targeting the people who do listen to it. But in the same sense, it's kind of hard when it's when the people, like she was saying, the people in charge of the media, they're pumping this out because there's so much money to be made in it. So it's not that like you should target a group. I think everybody should just change the way that they think. Like everyone had a conscience about, you know, these guys on the radio, and if they started to change the way, you know, stop listening to it, then it could eventually put an end to it. But it's kind of hard when you have a bunch of people on top making so much money.
The people that are making the money off the airtime.
They don't care because they make money, and we're in a capitalist society. That's the bottom line, is to make more money. So we have to change the way that people think when it comes to making the money and not caring about who's getting hurt.
Let's make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. So who is next?
I'd be interested to see what would happen if they changed the times that they're doing it, and I think the ratings would go down quite a bit. But again, you know, they have the white male privilege. You know, they're not the ones at the bottom getting up all the heat. Right. I think it's like a big popularity contest. Maybe if they were lower in the chain, they would feel different. But they have the power, so to speak, and other people are willing to share that with them, I guess.
You had a comment?
You know, the issue of the media and the role in perpetuating violence against women is so vast. It's really hard to pin down. But it seems to me like one of the underlying issues in all the different areas of the media that I've seen is perpetrated is we live in such a culture of the objectification of women, as women are viewed in this supposedly sexually free society, free culture, and as a form of, still a backwards as form of social, economic, sexual, and political commodity to be bought and sold. And if they don't want to go along with being bought and sold, if necessary, kidnapped and brought across international borders.
You can turn it off, but it's still going to be there, and it has to start from the person, I guess you could say. Like, you can't, it's still going to be there. That mentality is still going to be there, so you have to start as an individual to stop it, because there's always going to be a Howard Stern. There's always going to be something out there, whether it's mass or whether it's your next door neighbor feeding your child that information. So either way, it's just sad that our media is like that, and that we just get money off of it, and that's what it is. It's a money-based, just like she was saying. Everything's based on money, and regardless if it's hindering humanity, it's going to continue.
So at some point, somebody dropped the ball with moral responsibility. And at what point can you take it back to that place where, no, watching a girl getting raped is not entertaining. And somebody has to step up and say, where is it? Where are we going to go back and bring it back to a standard of decent, livable, integrity thinking? And there isn't anything politically wrong with being compassionate and saying, what is acceptable? These things are not acceptable. This verbal attacks are not acceptable. How can you maybe look at the FCC? What happened? They dropped the ball. Because when we were kids, it was very different, and I don't mean to be melancholy or whatever, you know.
The stereotypes were still there in old TV, though. Look at, like, I Love Lucy, you know, she was a stay-at-home mom. And
But Lucy wasn't getting raped at
oh, I know, but still, the stereotypes were unhealthy even then, though.
But someone maybe needs to bring it back and say, okay, we brought ourselves to this intelligent level to say that this is, Lucy isn't everybody's, oh, Ricky, and I can only make a bread loaf about a mile long or whatever, you know what I'm saying? We brought ourselves up this level. Why did we go down then 2 steps from that point? We went up and then back down again, you know?
Right. Again, like,
I was just going to say one more comment and then.
Yeah, but again, it reflects the culture. So we can try to change the media, and we can try to change the culture, but you definitely need to work on both.
Yeah.
So yeah. Go ahead, Spencer.
We keep saying someone, like it's an abstract thing, like somebody needs to do something. I'm saying start with you. Stop buying the pop albums.
Exactly.
Stop going to the movies. But as an individual,
Right.
don't place the blame on the FCC, or don't place the blame on the government. Don't place the blame on culture. Place the blame on yourself.
Well,
what movies do you go to? What things do you buy? Who do you shop with? Do you know what the corporations are doing with the money that you give it to?
Okay,
No, I'm saying, I'm not attacking you, but I'm just saying, at an individual level.
And you guys are all bringing up excellent points, and the main point that you guys are bringing up is what our workshop is on. Every single, the sponsors, the people who listen to it, everyone is responsible for the rape culture that ends up or results in women being raped. And so everyone has an amazing point, and you all added to that, and thank you very much.
Okay. We're gonna move.
She's a dying point.
Oh no, I just want to say, like, again, not to personalize what people are saying. It's just that we're trying to like have a discussion on like what people can do individually as well as in a collective to like.
People are doing it, keep men and women fighting with each other, then they don't have to worry about people getting together and fighting the ruling classes.
I agree. And women fighting each other.
Well, that too.
I think they should. Okay, we're going to move on to myths. We were going to talk about the media more, but we're kind of running out of time.
We are. We addressed everything except the feminazi thing, so I'm just going to read one quote from Jackson Katz because it's important for everyone to hear this, and he says it best. Jackson Katz says about feminazi, people can legitimately differ with positions feminists take on various issues. In fact, there is often healthy debate and disagreement between feminists. But Limbaugh does not simply express disagreement with feminists, he routinely ridicules and personally insults them. That is, he routinely demeans the very people who create and sustain the anti-rape movement. Let's be clear, there would be no rape crisis centers or battered women's programs without them. Millions of women and children would not be protected by the laws feminists helped to write and enact over the past generation. Rape within marriage would still be legal. Without feminists, there would be virtually no anti-rape education in schools. So when Limbaugh stigmatizes feminists by calling them names like feminazi, he is attacking those women who have been most successful in the fight against rape. This indirectly helps foster rape culture to the extent that it weakens the most effective opponents. I think we all need to hear that.
Right, so it's hard, it's more indirect, but again, with feminazi, what are feminists? Feminists are fighting for ending all oppressions and giving, I guess, I don't want to use the word equality because it's kind of shifty, but, you know, giving rights to people and working for human rights. And Nazis are killers and, you know, they commit genocide and whatnot. So, I mean, clearly throwing those two words together is just so unfair and so mean and so untrue. Just untrue is the main thing. Okay, now we're going to talk briefly about myths, rape myths. Does anyone want to share, and we're going to do this really quickly, I'm going to go over them quickly, but if anyone wants to share maybe one rape myth that they feel like is perpetuated in our society.
She was asking first.
Thank you. That's a big one.
Yes. No meaning yes.
Yeah, good.
You can't rape your own wife.
Good.
You shouldn't dress like that if you don't want it.
Good. All right, okay, those are all really good. And so I'm just going to briefly list through this. A lot of these were already said. One is rapists are just sick individuals, and I think what we're trying to show you here today is that rape, like we were saying, it takes a village to rape a woman. Everyone is complicit, basically. Everyone has a role in the raping of women, and when people don't believe, when people blame the victim and say it was because she was just dressing that way, and when people don't realize we're in a rape culture where rape is actually normal, 1 in 3 women are raped, I mean, what could be more normal than that? It's really clear that rapists aren't just sick individuals. They're actually just regular guys who are just doing what's the culture is just telling them is normal, which is to be aggressive and violent towards women. Another thing that I think was said was women can put themselves in a position to be raped. I just want to make one thing clear, no matter what the woman is doing, you can have the most outlandish story about how she was on drugs and naked in an alley, and then she still can't put herself in a position to be raped, because rape is never, you can never ask to be raped. It's never the victim's or the survivor's fault. Okay, so if a woman snuck out of her house and went to a party and someone raped her, we're not going to say, well, she shouldn't have gone to that party. Well, she didn't go to that party intending to get raped, okay? She was not asking for rape, and the person who raped her is the one that made that decision. And if you can say, oh, let's move on. Just because you're gay does not make you different. It does not make you a pedophile, okay? Gay men do not like children more than straight men, and like we said, it's actually heterosexuals who are mostly, it's actually people who are usually in a heterosexual marriage that are abusing children sexually. So that's heterosexuals are the ones that we should be afraid of. Okay. Another thing is rape is mostly a college issue, and it only affects, young, let's say 20-somethings. That's not true. We work at the Rape Crisis Center, and we know that women of all ages and men are raped, and that includes literally women in their 80s, 90s. Everyone is raped. It's not just about looking a certain way. You don't have to look like this to be raped. If that was true, then only these women would be being raped, when really everyone's being raped.
Including infants.
Including infants, yes. Another thing is the whole myth of the stranger in the bushes. There's this, especially the black stranger in the bushes. That's untrue. About 80% of rapes are by somebody you know. So it's I don't say very rare, it can happen, but it's not the normal thing that you're just walking down an alley and someone jumps out and rapes you. It's actually probably most likely going to be your partner, somebody in your family, a friend, somebody you know from school, something like that. And just to go farther with that, Angela Davis talks about the myth of the black rapist. And she talks about how a lot of, when civil rights was happening and a lot of black people were getting their rights, that the Ku Klux Klan and everyone started saying that the black men were raping the white women and lynching them all the time. And this is not true. I mean, the reality of that is that during slavery and afterwards, it's really the white men, white slaveholders, who are raping their black female slaves. So when we say we're all afraid of this black man in the bushes or this black rapist historically, we know that it's actually the white men who are the ones that are that were perpetrating at the time. And to go back to your point about what was it, the choice? Oh, about prevention, rape prevention. What we like to say instead is risk reduction. And I was talking earlier about if you go to, let's say, a club or whatever, and you don't watch your drink, but then you can get raped, let's say. So is that partially your fault for not watching your drink? No. The answer is no. But going back is you can't prevent rape. Just because you can stop it from happening to you doesn't mean you're preventing rape in general. So just because you watched your drink and you didn't get raped doesn't mean that the person next to you didn't. Because if that man is going to rape somebody, he's going to find somebody there. And if it's not you, that doesn't mean it's not somebody else. So the actual number of rape would still be the same, and you're not preventing it, you're just reducing your own risk. Okay. Does anyone have any comments about the myths?
It seems like the whole thing we're talking about here is a power imbalance. The master-slave relationship, person putting a drug in someone's drink to, make them powerless, seems to be just all the same stuff, just a power situation.
Yeah, and that's something that feminists do say is we wanted to change this whole idea of men being unable to control their sexuality, so they're raping, and we're actually saying no, it's not that they can't control themselves, it's that they want to show their control and exercise their power over somebody else, and it proves to them their own power, and at the same time take something from that person.
I think that's why you come up with all this nonsense about feminazis and whatnot, because there's guys that don't want to give up their power.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you bring up a great point. Rape is about domination and control, and it is not a sexual crime. In fact, it's been found that around 60 to 70% of rapists do not ejaculate during the crime or after the crime or whatever. So it's not about sex. It's about having control over that person. And so you're exactly right.
Okay, so there's a couple points that we want to make sure that we don't give any kind of wrong messages here. We understand that men and boys are sexually abused. The point we're trying to make is that the perpetrators of violence against women are still overwhelmingly male, so it is a men's issue. And we also want to make clear that although we keep saying that 99% of the perpetrators are men, we are not saying 99% of men are rapists. That's not what we're saying. There's a big difference there, and that's often somebody will be really caught up by that. And obviously, we all have men that we love and care about and respect, and we all have men who hopefully that equally return that love and respect. And so we want to make sure that nobody gets the impression, because the word male basher is thrown around sometimes, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to be constructive. We want to say, this is what the situation is. We live in a rape culture. That's our situation. What are we going to do about it? So we need to talk about power, and we need to talk about oppression, and we need to talk about contributing factors on an individual basis, on a systemic basis. And so we just want to make sure that none of those unclarities. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Anybody want to add anything conclusively?
I was just going to add something about cultures. I think a lot of times people talk about other cultures, and if we were to say, well, in the Middle East they really treat women wrong because it's their culture to treat women wrong, or in Hispanic neighborhoods they just have machismo, so that's just their culture. Well, what we're trying to talk about here is, this isn't some crazy other cultures we're talking about. We have the same culture. We have a rape culture, and it is part of our culture to be violent against women. And so when we talk about other cultures and other them in that way, it's really racist. I mean, really, because we're the same. And America does have a culture, a rape culture. And we fail to see the rape crisis in America as a cultural. We fail to see it. We see it as, like I said, it's a couple sick individuals. We see it as an individual issue when it's really a huge, bigger picture than that.
But you will all be getting a candle, and basically what the candle symbolizes is a commitment to kind of contribute in some way to end, the problem with the rape culture, whether it be just standing up when someone says a sexist joke, or just ending the perpetuation of these rape myths. So if you could just pass these around, we were going to have you individually, if you could just pass them back, individually go through and make a commitment, another commitment, and light the candle, but rather, maybe you could just think it to yourself and then go home and light the candle all the way down, and that'll be like the consolidation of your commitment. And lastly, we want to bring attention to some things that are occurring that people are trying to bring change about. Like, for instance, there's this website that's really popular across the country. It's called Holla Back. It's a blog spot. Basically what it is they have one in LA. If you're sexually harassed or someone's making inappropriate comments, you can take a picture of him or her or whoever the person is, the perpetrator. You can put it online, and you can describe your story and where it happened and who it happened by. And so it publicly puts that person, it makes him or her responsible for their actions. So that is an amazing website that you should all check out. You'd be surprised to see what kind of stuff is going on near your homes and workplaces. So it's definitely, I would recommend looking that up.
Well, it might follow what you were saying about the statistics you were doing. That there are plenty of men out there who are partners in the struggle, and that we're not all bad guys.
Of course.
But it's also really important on the same level, and it's important that there's nothing, whether we're men or whether we're white men or whether we're this or that, any other reason that we resort to using stereotypes against anybody else, there's no need for us to feel defensive about being called on the carpet for saying something stupid or saying something that you simply don't know is offensive to somebody else. It doesn't take being a racist to use racist terminology or racist stereotypes. That's the culture. And the same thing with women, with women's issues, with gender violence and the perpetuation of that. We have choices in how we relate to each other, and there's nothing, as long as somebody doesn't call you on the carpet and insult you and say, you're stupid, you're perpetrating violence against me. And there are other ways of bringing out the use of negative language, the use of hateful or hurtful language in a way that doesn't that none of us should feel defensive about that. I mean, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember back in the, like me, back in the 70s, there was this revolting magazine, which still exists, it was called Hustler, which I know. There was this revolting cover of a woman's thigh and leg being sticking out of a meat grinder. And that caused, fortunately, a national outrage, which resulted, of course, in the pulling of that issue from the newsstands, but not after millions of men, of horny men had bought it. And it was declared a free speech issue. They had the right to publish that garbage.
It's really hard, and what's important, I think you bring up, is that we all have to kind of unlearn the things that the culture has taught us, and we have to help other people in a really understanding way instead of attacking others. I think you're right.
What you just, you would have said, we have a choice not to buy that crap.
We do. We all have choices.
A story about this for class, like, is it by chance I can get yours as email and like ask you questions?
Yeah. Actually, really cool. Oh, I can help you.